All right, so we're ready to get this Z started with the BP single turbo kit. We have our charger on it. We flashed the ECU. You'll notice the fans are on. More than likely the fan controller has gone bad, so it'd be a good idea to replace it. But the next thing we'll do is, because we've also installed a return fuel system on it, we'll verify that the fuel pump's working using Ecutech's fuel pump tool. We can turn it on, and we can also make sure that we hear the pump, and also because we have a fuel pressure gauge on it, we can see what the fuel pressure is. We will set the fuel pressure once it's idling, disconnect the vacuum hose reference off the regulator, ensure we have the correct fuel pressure. I like to set these up for about 52, 53 PSI, right around in there. So we've got it flashed, and let's turn on the fuel pump, and then we'll start it up. Of course, we've got oil. We've checked all our fluids beforehand, very important. These comp turbos come pre-greased already, so that's already done. A big thing is make sure, if you're an owner of one of these kits or turbos, get them greased probably, I don't know, at least every, it says 3,000, but probably at least every 2,500 to be safe, right? So you don't have coolant running through that turbo, you don't have oil going through it. Kind of makes me a little bit nervous. You know, you don't have any of the cooling from both sides, right? The oil will help cool because it's getting cooled through the engine. You just have grease that really has, you know, no cooling aside of the air cooling that's there, and you don't have any coolant. So coolant usually runs through those center sections, and that helps also cool, you know, all the internal components of the turbocharger, so the bearings and everything. So anyways, let's get going. Let's turn the fuel pumps on, make sure that's good, and then let's fire it up for our first start. All right, so we've got it fired up. As you, pretty common when you first start them up, they tend to misfire, especially with brand new fuel injectors. Waking those bad boys up, misfired for the first like 10 seconds or so, but now it's running really, really nice and smooth. We've got the heater on just to make sure we didn't have the cooling system apart, but just to make sure we get any air bubbles out, make sure that the heater core gets warmed up and it's blowing hot air once the engine warms up. So we'll do all our little checks, make sure there's no leaks of any sort, but so far so good. So once we get done with this, we'll get it cleaned up and we'll get it tuned. Guys, we're gonna set the base fuel pressure. I know you've seen me do this before. We'll do it again. Right now, we have vacuum reference hooked up to the regulator, but again, it's super critical that you pull this hose off to get our base fuel pressure, because right now you have vacuum being applied. Your fuel pressure is naturally gonna be lower because we have vacuum. So JD's gonna pop it off. Just put it on here for now. So use the stud in your favor, and now you'll see that our fuel pressure is pretty high. So we're almost at 70 PSI. So at the top of the regulator, we have our adjustment screws. So we're going to go ahead and lower that. And we are just at about 50. So we'll go just a hair more. Give it a little bit more, JD. Go up. Now that we hook up our reference hose, it'll drop even more. So right in there, mid 40s, high 40s, and we'll got that set. We'll do the final checks. All right, guys, so we've wrapped up this 2009 370s. It has 152,000 original miles on this bad boy. So obviously there's a lot of risk that can be involved. So we didn't want to go super nutty, super crazy with trying to make a bunch of power on this thing. The last thing we need is a connecting rod going through the side of the block. So on 91 octane, 9 pounds of boost, we're making 441 and 361 foot-pounds of torque. E85, almost E85. I think we got it up to about E65. We're making 580 and 427 torque. So we're controlling the boost in a way to try and keep our torque as flat as possible without any spikes, and almost mimicking a little bit of a supercharger power band. So just to recap on this bad boy, it has the BP single turbo kit on it. We installed the CJM return fuel system, billet hat. We've got the Walbro Hellcat fuel pump in there, our flex fuel kit, and we actually got to install one of our brand new Max 6 pucks for the 370s. So in conjunction with a Z-Speed flywheel and the C-Mac. So all that's working really, really well, and we're really happy with the outcome. So not too shabby. I figure this thing naturally aspirated is probably putting down at best with this kind of mileage, maybe like 310 on our dyno to the tire for power. So we're making another 130 wheel on top of that for 91. And then we've got it up to 580 wheel. So that's another 140 wheel on top of our 91 octane. So yeah, really, really good results. So we'll go take this thing on a drive and we'll be back.